Join me this October where I'll be celebrating Halloween. 31 zine reviews in 31 days. Joining me will be my friend Beanie. Welcome back to Halloween. We've taken a little bit of a break. I had a directing gig that I had to take care of, which sidetracked me for 4 or 5 days. I wanted a few more in the bank so that I wouldn't have any hiccups, but best laid plans just never work out sometimes. So we're back in the saddle, and today we're going to look at a new book, a new zine. What do you think, Beanie? Do you want to do that? You're not tired? I'm not tired either. Let's do this thing. So today we are going to be looking at Knave by Ben Milton. Now, I'm sure everybody is familiar with it, but let's just go through it for those maybe that haven't discovered it before. So Knave by Ben Milton, otherwise known as Questing Beast on his YouTube channel. Everybody knows what an advocate he is for the OSR, and he's really brought a lot of people into the space. So, he's one of the I guess the big people in the space, and does a great job of promoting how good the OSR can be. And his game, Knave, was a result of almost like taking Maze Rats to the next level. And it's got some like really unique features, and people, it's Creative Commons, and you're able to use it as a base for your own game. But it just kind of really captures some magic. You can see the design on it. The cover is by Perplexing Runes, and he's also a familiar face in the OSR world. So let's talk about Knave. It is a rules toolkit created by Ben Milton for running old school fantasy RPGs without classes. Adding, subtracting, and modifying rules is both expected and encouraged. Knave's features include high compatibility with OSR games, fast to teach, easy to run, no classes. Abilities are king. So everything's a D20 roll against the 6 standard abilities that everybody would be familiar with from D&D. There's optional player-facing roles, which I think most people tend to do in the OSR nowadays if they can. Copper standard, meaning gold, instead of gold pieces, you have copper pieces, and a list of 100 level list spells. Character creation. Now, this is a unique thing that most people in the OSR might be familiar with, but those that are coming from 5e might not be, is you have your 6 standard abilities: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. You roll 3d6, and then you take the lowest of the 3 dice, and that is your abilities bonus. So if you were to roll this, which is a 6 and a 4 and a 1, the lowest one is a +1. So your strength would have a +1 bonus. And then what happens is you get the defense score plus that 1. So it would be 11. So it's +1 for strength is your bonus, and 11 is the defense score. So let's just do another one as a good example. So this one would be a +2, and for dexterity, and you would get a 12 defense score. Your lowest one here is a 3, and so on and so on. The PC start with 2 days of rations. You roll 1d8 to determine your hit points. And then there's a whole bunch of cool random tables to start your character off. So let's do that. We got a d20 here. The physique is an 8, which is ripped. Of course, face, 11, impish. Skin, 11 again, reeking. Hair is curly. Clothing is flamboyant. Virtue, merciful. Vice, 20, whiny. Speech, booming. Background, gambler. Misfortunes, kidnapped. And finally, alignment, chaos. So quickly, you get your characters running. Your starting gear, once again, roll your d20s. 16, Brigandine. Do I have a helmet or a shield? I have a helmet. My dungeoneering gear. So you roll once on this table and sorry, twice on this table and once on each of the following. Whoop, that's not a good roll. 19. So we have spikes and we have pulleys. Those seem to go well together. General gear, air bladder. Who knows what we could do with that? And 15, cooking pots. So the whole idea behind a lot of OSR games and a lot of these random tables is to give your character like a little bit of a, this is who they are, you can play with it and lean into that, especially when it's classless, because those are the things that differentiate you from other players. I mean, and as well as your attributes. Here's a list of items and the costs once you get more copper pieces. Clothing, food, armor. Also listed here is the armor. So as you can see, some of them have scores of defense +1. They take 1 slot, which we'll talk about shortly. And the quality is also another item to do with armor and swords as well, where you have your weapons here. You have damage, the slot they take, how many hands it takes to use, and the quality of each of them. And of course, we round out lodging, ships, those types of things that you can spend your copper on. So playing the game, as we talked about, you have the 6 standard abilities that many, or attributes that many people are used to. And then you have item slots, and each person starts with, let me see how many slots. I think it's 2 equal to their constitution and defense. So that's how many that you are able to fill up. Saving throws, which is a key element to the game, is that when you do any kind of action, it's almost like instead of save versus death, it's a saving throw to do that particular action. So if you have a bonus, just say you're bending bars and the check that you're trying to reach is 15, and just say you have, if I remember correctly, a +2 for our strength. So 18 + 2 is 20, and that would be a success. So you're trying to reach over that 15 threshold. And there's also options for advantage, disadvantage, similar to what most people would know from 5e. You just roll 2 dice, and then you take the best of the 2 dice or the worst of the 2 dice, depending if you have advantage or disadvantage. Reaction. So if you are encountering a NPC, you would have a roll and they would be unsure of you. Now, combat is similar to the saving throw in a lot of respects. You would have the roll 20, and then you would try to either achieve their defense roll, depending upon what you're doing. So there's a lot of variation here. Like if you're throwing something, your roll is based upon your wisdom, because you're trying to judge how far and distant that thing is, or like shooting a bow, versus strength, which would be for your sword or club or similar thing like that. So very similar to the saving throws, except at the end of the day, if you are successful, you also deliver damage. There's also the initiative system, which is almost a coin flip. It's 1 to 3, it's the good guys, your party, and 4 to 6, it is the PCs or the monsters. Stunts. Here's a kind of a fun thing that I think Ben captured really well, is their combat maneuvers such as shoving, disarming, tripping, sundering armor, and so on. So this is the kind of like, you can be creative here. And sometimes you cause damage, sometimes you wouldn't. So if you like push somebody, that would be a stunt. And if they happen to fall off the cliff, well, they're going to receive damage. But it doesn't necessarily cause damage. It's just a stunt. The other thing that you can do is if you have advantage in combat, rather than rolling another d20 and taking the best of, you can actually do a stunt and an action, as in like a combat action. And then you have your critical hits, and if they roll a 20, that can take a quality off the armor that we, or the weapon that we talked about earlier. So those critical hits and low scores, a natural 1, also can take the quality off. A morale, similar to probably old school D&D, you have a morale score, and then you try to roll 2d6, and if it's above the morale, then they would flee, because they would have low morale, and if above it, they would flee. And that is kind of similar to probably what a lot of people expect. Healing, pretty straightforward. You know, if you gain hit points back for resting. Monsters, you have the D8 hit dice. So roll up your monsters. A lot of the any kind of old school D&D would be useful. Any of the monsters from the bestiary, however you want to pronounce it, are acceptable and probably useful here. Because of the way the saves work, the one thing that you have to keep in mind is because OSR monsters usually don't come with ability scores, assume the monsters have the ability bonus equal to their level with the corresponding ability defenses. So if it's a 4 hit dice monster, that's like basically 4th level. And so 10 plus the 4 is 14 for their defense. And then the advancement is very simple. You gain 1,000 XP and you gain a level. And then with that, you get to get more hit points. And you also raise the defense and bonus scores of 3 different abilities of their choice by 1 point. But abilities may never be raised higher than 20 or plus 10. Magic. And this was, you know, to be honest with you, I don't actually know where the whole idea of spell books came from. I'm going to give Ben the credit for it, because I think that a lot of people have kind of used that. And the spell books, basically you read them and you carry them, and that allows every single character to be able to cast spells by just reading them, and the spell books take up slots. And it also adds an element of like, people want to steal your spell books or take your spell books, or you could lose your spell book. So there's kind of a fun element to having those spell books, and it's encumbrance, and it's also magic, and anybody can cast it as long as they read it. And once again, like many OSR books, the spells are usually along the lines of like a description. They're not like going to give you like D8 of this or D6 of that. In some instances, there is a numeric part of it, but a lot of it is just like in-game kind of results, which is, I think, a little bit more fun. You can see we've got 100 spells here, and then the thank you Knave was made possible by the encouragement, feedback, and assistance of Patreon supporters at Questing Beast. And if you are not subscribed to the Questing Beast newsletter, you obviously should. It's like the greatest roundup of OSR materials that you can find. And then you can see, just take a quick look at the character sheet where you have your hit points, which is your max and your current. You have your bonuses. So once again, those would probably be +2, +3, +4. If you rolled all 6s, that would be +6. And then the 10 plus the bonus is your defense. Your armor also has the defense and a bonus. And then your item slots, depending on how many you had, you would fill them up with your encumbrance and spell books or whatever the case might be. And then all your traits that we discussed and we rolled randomly at the beginning. So system design, Ben Milton, cover and interior, Perplexing Ruins, layout and adaptation, Flux and Signum Nox, character sheet based upon the work of Declan J. Keane, and printing by our friend Leo at LFOSR. And you can really tell the quality of the paper here. You can just feel it, nice Italian paper. Knave, Ben Milton, it's one of the foundations of the OSR movement. And I would say if you're not subscribing to Ben's Patreon, you really should, because he actually releases the second edition, which is similar, but a little bit more advanced, a little bit more details to Knave. So Knave second edition, you can download from his Patreon if you're a subscriber. and it's looking to be really good. So once again, Ben Milton, Questing Beast, Knave second edition on the way, but I only have the hard copy of the original one to kind of showcase tonight. But just check it out. One of the foundational pieces of the OSR. So don't forget to register to win $200 in store credit from Exalted Funeral that we will be drawing on Halloween Day. And now that we're back in the saddle, expect a little bit more frequency so that I can get caught up, and so that we can finally have 31 zine reviews in 31 days as promised.
Happy Halloween, ladies.